It's human nature to stop and stare at anyone who's different. It's not the most flattering part of who we are, but it's undeniably there. Carnival sideshows and freak shows have long put the different and deformed on display. While some argue these shows at least offered a way to earn a living, for many, it was just one more chapter in a deeply tragic life. In this video, we're taking a look at the 15 most terrifying circus freaks you won't believe actually exist. Number 15. The living torso. Prince Randian was born in Guyana, but his real name was never revealed. He had tetra amelia syndrome, which is basically a condition where a person is born without arms or legs. At 18, he moved to the US and joined the infamous P.T. Barnum's Circus. His signature act was rolling and lighting cigarettes using only his lips. He could also write with his mouth, and often showed off these skills during performances. They sometimes dressed him as a caterpillar, a snake, or even a potato. In 1932, he appeared in the film Freaks, where he demonstrated his cigarette lighting trick. He was funny, charming, and known to be popular with the ladies. He was married and had 5 kids. Randian died at age 63 from a heart attack right after performing in New York City. Despite being displayed for how he looked, it was how he moved and smiled that people remembered. He had no limbs, but all the extra presence in the world. Number 14. The white negress. Amelia Newsham was born in Jamaica to enslaved African parents and carried albinism that left her skin pale and her hair white. As a child, she was sent to London as a gift and later sold to showman Thomas Hall, who exhibited her in the 1790s as the white negress. At Hall's House of Curiosities, visitors paid a shilling to watch her recite verses about her white wool and African roots. Souvenir coins stamped with her face turned her image into a marketplace commodity. But Amelia's story didn't end on stage. She gained her freedom, married an Englishman, and raised 6 beautiful children. She continued performing, not as property, but on her own terms. Her story crossed the lines of race, science, and exploitation in a way that Victorian London had never faced before. By the 1820s, she was still performing, not as an exhibit, but as a woman who turned the world's cruelty into survival and refused to vanish. Number 13. The Monkey Girl and the Alligator Boy. Priscilla Roman Bahano was covered head to toe in fur and lived a life that felt almost like a sideshow love story. Known as the Monkey Girl, she began performing at just 3 years old in Lowther's European Wonder Show, often exhibited alongside chimpanzees and orangutans. The act grew especially popular after the Scopes monkey trial, feeding off public curiosity about evolution. In 1936, she joined the Johnny J. Jones Exposition's Wonders of the 20th Century, where she met Emmett Bajano, billed as the Alligator Boy, whose body was covered in reptilian scales from ichthyosis. The two fell in love and married in 1938, becoming Londo and Lobello, the world's strangest married couple. They toured with Ripley's Believe It or Not, then ran their own act through the 1950s and 60s. Even into the 1970s, they performed together under the Straits banner. After Emmett's death in 1995, Priscilla kept shaving her face, but never her memories. Number 12. The Elephant Skin Man. Ralph Albert Kruner was born in 1888 in Vermont, and since then the world never stopped staring. His skin thickened and folded as he grew, his hands and knees rough as tanned leather. People called him the Elephant Skin Man, and from then on he lived between medicine and spectacle. Doctors debated whether it was pachydermoperiostosis or ichthyosis, but carnival owners preferred folklore, claiming his mother had seen an elephant stampede while pregnant. Ralph ignored all of it. He toured fairs and dime museums, posing patiently, accepting every curious stare. He wasn't rich, but he was independent. He booked his own shows, set his own terms, and took pride in surviving on his own. When he died in 1952, the rumors grew stranger, but the truth remained simple. Ralph turned his condition into armor. The skin that once defined him became the very thing that protected him. He lived on his own terms without any regrets. Number 11. Le Bossu. The legend of Quasimodo, the tragic hunchback of Victor Hugo's Notre Dame de Paris, may not have been fiction at all. Historical fragments suggest Hugo's inspiration came from a real man, a hump-backed stone carver who worked in the very cathedral that became the novel's heart. Discovered in a 19th century British memoir, this craftsman was said to be quiet, solitary, and reclusive, deeply devoted to his work, yet separated from the world by his deformity. His nickname, Le Bossu, simply meant the hunchback. Hugo was closely involved with the cathedral's restoration around 1831, the same time he wrote the novel. It isn't hard to imagine him crossing paths with this man, observing his bent figure among the shadows of flying buttresses and stained glass. The story of Quasimodo, of devotion, beauty, and cruelty, suddenly feels less invented and more remembered. Behind the fiction, there may truly have been a hunchback who rang the bells and lived unseen. He was a pretty mysterious man. Number 10. The Bearded Lady. Josephine Bois Deschênes was born in Switzerland in 1827 and had hypertrichosis that caused excess hair growth. By age 8, her beard had already reached 2 inches long. Barnum hired her, changed her surname to Clofulia, and displayed her as a bearded lady. He believed people would debate if she was truly a lady or just a man in a dress. But to his annoyance, audiences mostly accepted her as female. In 1853, Barnum orchestrated a lawsuit to stir controversy. He paid a man named William Charr to sue him for fraud. In court, Josephine's father and husband testified, and 3 doctors confirmed she was indeed a woman. The publicity worked. The trial made headlines, and crowds flooded into Barnum's American Museum to see her. She didn't need to speak. Her presence started conversations. Josephine wasn't just exhibited for her condition. She was turned into a question mark, and that's what packed the dark room. Number 9. The Mule-Faced Woman. Grace McDaniels was known by one of the cruelest stage names ever given, the Mule-Faced Woman. She had a severe facial deformity caused by Sturge-Weber syndrome, which distorted her features and made her appearance painful for others to accept. Despite being labeled the ugliest woman in the world, Grace carried herself with quiet dignity. She performed with the Harry Lewiston Circus, always polite and soft-spoken, often reminding people that kindness had nothing to do with looks. She married and had 1 son, Elmer, who unfortunately turned to alcohol and crime, becoming far more of a sideshow in spirit than his mother ever was. Grace continued touring until her death in 1958, leaving behind a legacy of decency in a cruel industry. Though posters mocked her face, those who knew her spoke only of her warmth and humor. The world saw deformity. What her friends saw was grace, in every sense of the word. Number 8. The Cardiff Giant. In 1869, workers digging a well in Cardiff found what looked like a 10-foot-tall petrified man. People called it a biblical giant, proof of Genesis. Its creator, George Hull, had the figure carved from gypsum, buried it, and waited. The discovery made headlines. Hull charged admission, earning thousands. P.T. Barnum offered $60,000 to lease it, but Hull refused. So Barnum made his own replica and promoted it as the real one, calling Hull's fake the imitation. Lawsuits followed. The Cardiff Giant became the ultimate circus paradox, a fake so convincing that even when exposed, people still paid to see it. Scientists confirmed it was carved, not fossilized, yet curiosity kept it alive. The hoax outlasted its creator. Today, the original rests at the Farmers Museum in Cooperstown, New York. Visitors still line up, not to believe, but to marvel at belief itself. The Cardiff giant wasn't proof of ancient myths, it was proof of human gullibility. Number 7. Julia Pastrana. Julia Pastrana was born in Mexico in 1834 with hypertrichosis and gingival hyperplasia, conditions that gave her a thick coat of hair and enlarged facial features. Promoters called her the Ape Woman, parading her across Europe as a curiosity of nature. Her manager and husband, Theodore Lent, profited from her every appearance. Julia could sing, dance, and speak multiple languages, yet audiences saw only spectacle. In 1860, she gave birth to a son who shared her condition. Both died within days from complications. Lent, showing no mercy, had their bodies embalmed and displayed in glass cases. For decades, Julia's mummified body was passed between collectors and museums. In 2013, 153 years after her death, her remains were finally returned to Mexico and buried with respect. Her story remains one of exploitation and cruelty, but also endurance. Julia didn't live as the world's monster, she lived as its mirror. Number 6. Jojo, the dog-faced boy. Fedor Jevtichew, better known as Jojo the dog-faced boy, was born in Russia in 1868 with hypertrichosis that caused thick hair to cover his entire face and body. His father, Adrian, also shared the condition and toured Europe billed as the wild man from Kostroma, half man, half bear. Fedor grew up in the same world of spectacle, performing before he could write his name. When P.T. Barnum discovered him, he brought him to America, where he was trained to bark, growl, and play the part of a feral child supposedly captured in the Russian wilderness. Off stage, Fedor was intelligent and multilingual, fluent in Russian, German, and English. He wasn't wild at all, just a man playing the role the world demanded. He performed for decades under Barnum's banner, treated better than most, yet never fully free. Beneath the fur and the fiction lived a performer who mastered survival and played humanity's curiosity better than anyone. Number 5. The Wild Spotted Boy. Mungo Lark was known to sideshow crowds as the Wild Spotted Boy, though the truth was far less wild. He had vitiligo, a skin condition that caused light patches to appear across his body. But promoters invented their own version, claiming he came from a lost, spotted tribe of Africans. That falsehood filled posters and drew crowds across the country. Barker shouted his story. Artists painted jungle scenes around his photo. The real Mungo was just a man with an uncommon skin pattern, turned into a spectacle by a world that feared what it didn't understand. Very little is known about his life beyond the staged myth. Just his name, his face, and a few faded images. The rest was imagination sold for tickets. He wasn't feral, dangerous, or foreign. He was human. Mungo didn't need the fiction. His reality was more powerful. His skin told a story of beauty, difference, and exploitation all at once. Okay, now, let's head over to Number 4. Talon Crawford. Talon Crawford, born in 1975, became known in the sideshow circuit as Bat Boy and the Outcast. Standing 3.5 feet tall, with sharp features and wide eyes, he looked like a comic book myth come alive. He toured small American carnivals through the 1990s and early 2000s, performing in tents that kept the old freak show spirit alive. But Talon didn't lean on shock value. He used humor and storytelling, blending the eerie with the human. By 2005, he left the stage behind. Married to Roxy with a daughter, he settled in Washington State, trading spotlights for family dinners. When asked why he retired, he said it wasn't out of shame, but love. He wanted to be home when his daughter learned to walk. His story didn't end in tragedy or exploitation. It ended quietly, on his own terms. Talon Crawford knew when to perform and when to disappear, and that, in itself, was art. What do you think about him? Let us know. Number 3. Jack Dracula. Martin Semnak abandoned his birth name the day he tattooed his face. In the 1950s, that was rebellion, pure defiance. He renamed himself Jack Dracula and covered his body with over 400 tattoos, every inch of skin a living exhibit. His first shows were at Coney Island, then Hubert's Museum, Palisades Park, and Ringling Brothers. He stood silently, letting people stare. Some were fascinated, others disgusted. Jack didn't care. His tattoos weren't costume, they were commitment. When most men wore hats and ties, he walked in with inked fangs, crosses, and webwork running across his cheeks. Restaurants banned him, employers refused him, but he kept performing. He later appeared in underground films and tattoo magazines, becoming a symbol for outsiders who chose themselves over acceptance. In 2011, long after his death, Jack Dracula was inducted into the Sideshow Hall of Fame. He'd never wanted approval, but it found him anyway. The man people feared ended up becoming a legend, so never run for fame. Number 2. Gargantua. In 1938, the Ringling Brothers Circus was barely surviving until Gargantua arrived. Originally named Buddy, he'd been captured young and renamed after the mythical giant from Rabelais' tales. That name, that myth, became everything. Posters screamed, "The world's most terrifying living creature." Trainers claimed he despised humans. None of it was true, but it sold tickets. Gargantua didn't juggle, didn't dance, and didn't wear hats. He just existed behind bars, and that was enough. His presence filled tents that had sat empty for years. To boost publicity, the circus even staged a wedding with a lady gorilla. He never looked at her. They called him a monster, but he was just a captive animal used to save a dying business. Gargantua wasn't violent. He was exhausted. His silence said more than the banners ever could. He didn't roar for crowds. He endured them. In the end, it wasn't rage that made him famous. It was our fascination with cages. Number 1. The Oklahoma outlaw mannequin mummy. Before his death, Elmer McCurdy was the kind of outlaw you'd find in a dusty western. After death, he became something stranger, like a Hitchcock prop forgotten in a carnival. Shot by lawmen after a failed train robbery in 1911, his body was embalmed so thoroughly that it mummified. For 5 years, he stood on display in a funeral home. Then a carnival promoter, posing as kin, claimed his body and took it on tour as the Oklahoma Outlaw. For 60 years, McCurdy's corpse drifted between carnivals, freak shows, and wax museums. Eventually, he ended up hanging in a funhouse. In 1976, a crew member broke his arm, revealing bone instead of wax. Police were called, and a museum ticket was found stuffed in his mouth. That led them back through decades of fraud. Finally, in 1977, McCurdy was buried. It took 66 years, 2 coasts, and a trail of lies before anyone thought to let him rest. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for hanging with us, and we'll see you very soon.